Welcome to the Construction Chronicles, brought to you by Redstone Builders. This podcast covers everything from soil to shingles, and you'll learn about all the different phases in building a custom home. We'll have discussions about architecture, the housing market, landscape design, interior design, finding a custom builder, custom home trends from wine rooms, lighting, flooring, countertops, and much more. We're joined by Bob Appert, who is co-founder of Redstone Builders, as well as Dan Larson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm excited to get into this as you guys have some great experience in this business. And Bob and Dan do take pride in planning and executing a quality finished product that does exceed customer expectations. That's a given. We always master the facts around here, and those are facts. He works tirelessly to make sure, or they work tirelessly to make sure clients are 100% satisfied, and they are backed by 25 years plus. I guess if you combine it, it's even more. We're getting into the almost half-century mark of the two of you working in this business. So there's a lot of knowledge on here, and I'm really looking forward to what we're going to dive into today. And, Bob, one of the things we spoke about was, let's talk about, just a typical project, what it looks like, and how you guys work through it. And, one of the things, Dan, for you that I'm looking forward to is you're really relational in how your job works, and communication matters while you hit deadlines, as you have a pretty big job with this organization. So let's first start with Dan, shall we, Bob, and get him engaged?
Yeah.
Welcome aboard.
Good to be here.
Thank you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your role with your company and how the two of you came together?
Sure. So Bob and I kind of separate what happens from the office to the field, where I focus on execution, day-to-day activities in the field, coordinating, scheduling, doing service and warranty as well. And it's all about maintaining communication with buyers through the entire process, as well as managing the trades, working with interior design, delivering on expectations.
So, Bob, how did the two of you meet? And I'm sure you probably crossed paths earlier at some point in your career.
Dan and I worked together, overlapped at Pulte Homes for years. We worked together. Dan was out in the field, I was in the office, and when we decided to start Redstone Builders, we maintained those roles. So, I stay in sales, back office, estimating, and lining up the trade partners, getting the budgets straight, getting people paid, and Dan executes out in the field.
So between the two of you, I'm sure there's positives working for a large company like Pulte. And then when you go out on your own, basically, it's you against the world, right? And there's lots of things that you bring with you, but there's probably some experiences that the two of you organically learned and have probably made you better along the way. What are some of the biggest difference for working together as yourselves versus working for a larger organization?
You wear a lot of hats, and you don't always choose the hat, but you each have to wear all of them. So you lean on each other for strengths and focus on that so that you can deliver in the process and deliver the experience and build brand recognition and a name that people are proud to say that they own one of your homes.
How rewarding has it been, Bob?
It's amazing. It's a beautiful thing. The grass isn't always greener on the other side of the street, or other side of the fence. It's tricky to be self-employed. You don't have a regular paycheck coming in. There are pros and cons to self-employment. It's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
Right.
But over the last 18 years, Dan and I have been successful. We've had ups and downs, but for the most part, we survived the Great Recession, and we don't have one, as far as I'm aware, we don't have one irritated homeowner or client, and we fight really, really hard to keep all of our trade partners happy and all of our clients happy as we go through the process, to a fault. So we are, in a lot of cases, our own worst enemy, but the softest pillow is a clear conscience, and doing the right thing is paramount for us. So And we don't see that in a lot of other operations. Some of the things we run across and hear about from other builders, it's just I don't know, it feels good to be who we are.
Do both of you live within some of the communities that you've built at all, or do you stay away from that type of scenario?
At one point in time, I did. I lived in a development where I worked. That is no longer the case.
That would put a lot of pressure on you, wouldn't it? Kind of in a weird way.
On a Sunday morning, sometimes
Yeah,
it did.
yeah. That's where I was going with that. Yeah,
When you leave the garage.
yeah, exactly.
But it was good, and part of that was there was a consistent message to you felt good about what you delivered, so you were going to stand behind it, and that was all part of the experience.
Right, you owned it,
Right.
figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
Right.
And because of that, neither one of us are concerned about doing projects for friends or for family or, within our neighborhoods, just because we know we're going to perform. And we're going to hang in there until you're 100% satisfied with your product.
Well, that really matters. So let's talk about the product a little bit. So when you have a project, and before we get there, actually, it kind of plays into it. How do you mentioned, Bob, about the contractors and the people that work with you. How do you go about finding the trades and the people, and what goes into your decision making? Does that fall on your lap, Dan or Bob? Do you share that? How do you guys determine who works with you?
It depends. There's a lot, as Redstone has grown, there was a lot of trade partners that we leaned on from past experiences, guys that we've known for years. That we've maintained that in some cases, and in some cases we've kind of grown out of that, where we've needed, as we've grown as Redstone in the type of homes that we build, in certain situations, all of those things don't necessarily apply. So as you grow, whether it's a finite detail or just the overall process, it changes. Their ability to perform in certain areas, finding their strengths as well. So there's been great advantages as we've grown to help those trade partners grow as well with us and maintain that relationship. Just because the expectation is the easy part at that point. We've done it long enough that we know what each other expects. And it relates to the pricing side and knowing that we're consistent there too.
The pricing side, that's you.
Right.
Bob, I figured that's it. He kind of gave me the thumb over there. I'm like, okay, that opens up a whole question. So a project starts. Obviously, you need to price it out and figure out what is this thing going to cost? What's the business structure of this, and how does it work? So can you start from the beginning with how all of that comes together?
Yeah. So wherever the opportunity comes from, usually the opportunities are already designed or at a certain process in the design phase with either an independent designer or an independent architect. The project comes to us usually for a bidding opportunity. I'll send it out I will interview the candidate and if I'll discuss it with Dan. If Dan and I will decide if we need to sit down and see the project ourselves or not. If it's a pretty straightforward deal, we get Dan on board, then I'll send it out for quotes or send it out for pricing. I'll collect the numbers, I'll put it into a sworn construction statement, and I'll present it to the clients. And there could be there's a big spectrum. There's a big spectrum of things that could, quality of documentation at that point. Is the project fully spec'd? Is the tile selected? Is it not selected?
I don't know how you do it. I know, seriously, there's got to be so much detail to this,
right,
where you go, all the way down to forms and everything else that I know a little, not enough, but that's like foundation stuff, right? All the way up to what the shingle is going to be. Do you have like a checklist when you get a job and say, okay, these are all the elements? And how do you like not forget something?
So I follow my sworn construction statement, you know, that and it's evolved over the years. So
sure.
I've missed buckets. I've missed like, you know, sun louvers because I don't have a category for it on my sworn construction statement. Now I do. But we lean on our trade partners a lot to tip us off to things, right? So the siding contractor will look through it and he'll call up and he'll say, who's got the sun louver covered? Do you want me to put a number on it?
Oh,
and at that
yeah.
point, I'd be like, you know, shit, the sun louver, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, those types of, you know, business documents evolve, I guess, and become our guide, our guide as we develop the project,
Got it.
so to speak. So
then when you do that, do you need to say, okay, this is how much all of this is going to cost in material, and then this is what the labor is going to be, and then you formulate this is the cost of the project?
correct, something to that effect.
Whatever
So-
your margin would be or whatever it needs to be. And I'm sure, I mean, so you spec this or you come up with the price. Is this based off of someone then coming in and buying it, or are you doing this direct for someone?
So usually, again, it's Mr. and Mrs. Bethesda. They've been working with an architect. They don't have a builder yet. Their plans are fully designed and fully spec. They'll come to us.
Got it.
And how they heard about us, it varies across the board, right? Well, either they're friends of Dan's or associates or relatives or of mine, associates, relatives, or they saw work we were doing in a project, or we built a house for one of their friends or whatever. But over the last 18 years, it's interesting to see how these opportunities and leads come in, and it's feeding on itself now, right, so to speak.
Right.
It's just rolling. We don't really do a lot of advertising or promotions, but the business just keeps coming in.
Do you want to know what's really weird? Is that at our age, if we're doing it right, we're probably busy. So we had to work really hard when we were younger to draw in business, just to say, hey, listen to me, we're here. And then when you become trusted and respected, you're almost busier now than you were when you were younger because of that reputation and how that spreads and grows. And what I think would be interesting from your perspective is you have real tangible product that people can see this is good. How do you communicate that without bragging?
Dan, what would you say?
Well, in fairness, we probably don't do a great job of that, and our customers do it for us.
Right.
So which is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have people that are fans of our work for various reasons, whether there's aspects of design or it's a collaboration based on an architect that we're dealing with, and that all helps feed the process. So, but it does get more comfortable with age,
Doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's
for
kind of
sure.
cool. So then you obviously get the pricing and everything square. You have a project. What happens next?
Then at a certain point, there's a handoff where it goes over to Dan for execution out in the field. So then Dan will take the package, and he'll. Well, I can let you take it from there. But so once you get the package,
What does that look like? Is that like a spreadsheet, a PDF? What do you get?
It is the sworn construction statement, a set of plans, some project manuals related to appliance specs, cabinet drawings, lighting selections, all of those variables. And it is still an evolution in terms of interior design details as the house progresses, but really it just outlines the framework for what comes next, And then it's break down a schedule and circle back on the trade partners that are selected and just make sure that everything still fits and there aren't changes that weren't communicated in the interim and then execution. So
What's the trickiest part about the schedule? Like if you have one area that could kind of maybe push it a little bit or make it kind of head off the rails, is there a certain component which you have to really be on?
Well, I've been doing it long enough that the critical path typically doesn't change. There's some wild cards in the process of new variables based
Right.
on individual houses, but equally as important today is product lead times are not consistent. So, you'll take a situation where, as history serves, I've never had a lead time exceed X within a certain trade, and all of a sudden you have a selection that has a variable that is double that. So now it's
Yeah. Where did that come from?
right.
Right.
So now making sure that those variables that fit in the critical path are accounted for. So that's probably the hardest part today, is just because it's not consistent.
So you two probably have to communicate that a lot then together, right?
Constant.
Yeah.
So and a lot of it depends on the quality of the construction documents that are coming to me and through me to Dan. If we don't have all of the cabinet elevations, or if we don't have final countertop selections, or if we just have a placeholder for tile. So Dan will get the package and he'll say, okay, where's tile, where's countertops, okay, we don't have any of these things yet. We know clients are off working diligently with interior designers and architects, and they're working on it, but then you look at the smart construction statement, and you can see we've got buckets in place, or allowances in place, assumptions in place, right, from a pricing perspective. But, Dan's first order of business is saying, okay, where's my foundation plan? I got to dig the hole. I got to get the foundation going. And then we just start backfilling.
Do you know what I've always wanted to know about that? Just a generic question from a guy. How do you guys dig that hole perfect? Like, it has to have like an L here or something. How do you measure that? How does that work?
So it all stems from offset stakes that are outside of the excavation area. So typically you're working within 10-foot, 20-foot offset stakes from corners, and then each one has a flag and a pin that identifies the elevation of the bottom of the footing or top of footing, as it relates to the garage, the basement, whatever. But there's a layout that identifies basically grid lines that you're then communicating with.
So you could have a house foundation that's 100-foot by 100-foot square.
Right.
And the surveyor will come out and he'll find those true corners, and then he'll put 10-foot offset stakes.
What if the excavator guy just chokes and totally overdigs? Has that ever happened?
Oh, yeah.
What do you do? I mean, like, how do you, I mean, the honest question, I watch this, whether it's a building, a parking ramp, a home, and it seems to work. And I don't know, there's got to be, like, how? It's kind of cool, actually. So I'm fascinated by the precision of what's going on out there. It's pretty incredible.
It is. It's a talent.
Totally.
And it's also something that's changed over the years, where I find it interesting when you look at kids and their accuracy in operating video games. I think, are they more skilled in those areas than some of the people that we've leaned on for years, just because there's a different...
Are you seeing that?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm just always curious about
Right.
about how that's evolving, right? I haven't seen it, from an excavation standpoint. We seem to lean on, typically it's older guys with a lot of experience that we're seeing out there, but I think it's coming, because I think it is something that is easier for a generation.
Well, I do, because when you think about what a video game is it's fixed view looking somewhere ahead. It's hands down somewhere running controls, both. And I don't know if they're using their feet too sometimes, maybe, but it's very mirrored to that skill set and that ability to make your hands work with your eyes looking forward. And
Right.
and I don't think that's a natural thing for the body to do.
Yeah.
And so when you watch it, because I used to dump front load trash, and you had to do all kinds of stuff. It's kind of similar, and you had some tight spaces to do, and it's fun when you know how to do it. But it is a learned behavior, and it's always been something that's fascinating me when you get these large communities or projects, house after house after house. Like, what if they're just a foot off? Like, all the way to, what happens? I mean, do you like run out of a house? And so apparently it's fixable, or you get it right. Is that fair?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I think that, your first comment, I kind of equated it to soil corrections, and in certain situations, you run into soils that are not adequate for building foundations, right? And so you're then correcting that and then dealing with compaction and whatever to get yourself back to the proper, suitable location for the house. So similar, if somebody were to excavate too much, it's a similar situation in terms of how you solve it.
Got it. So if you look at yourself, you've got a lot of problem solving, I'm sure, to do daily, all the time. Phones ringing, we've got this, blah, 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 blah. Whatever, of the various topics we even talked about today. What would you say, Dan, is your problem solving style?
It starts with patience. I really work hard at thinking through before I react, to a fault where sometimes people are waiting.
They think you're too laid back.
Right. They're
Right.
waiting for that answer, or expecting that answer immediately. And again, experience has served very well in situations, but that doesn't mean that there aren't certain situations that come up that are new.
Right.
There's still some things that throw a wrench in the equation. So it's a matter
Fascinating.
of just taking a step back. It's taking the time to also engage Bob and make sure that there's buy-in on the other side of how we're going to proceed and move it forward.
So while he's going through all of these things on his side of the project, what's going on your side, Bob?
I'm maybe more client management, communicating numbers. If Dan will call me up and I'll say, I need countertops, I need appliances, and I need light fixtures. I got to order all three of those, and I'll realize I don't have any of the three. So I'll reach out and I'll grab clients and interior designers and I'll put them together and I'll say, okay, we need the final list by Tuesday. Or whatever the deadline is for them, and I'll expedite. Final list will come in, and I'll see the number is 15% more than what we had in the budget, and here are the reasons why, and do you want to move it forward, or do you want to go reselect? And we'll go through that process.
How much do you love that conversation?
Well, it's,
It is what it is, right?
With communication, with the right communication, it's okay, because when we set the allowances and the assumptions, we talk about it. And in theory, when clients go to showrooms with interior designers, they're empowered with this information, right? So they know they've got 20 grand in their budget, or 50 or 5, whatever. And, with the proper communication, you can really eliminate or minimize surprises. And with the way we're set up, one of our differentiating factors is we've got a Bob and a Dan. Most other operations have one player coming either out of the field or coming out of the trades, or, former agent or broker, and they're the builder and they're trying to wear both of these
Sure.
key hats for these two key roles in an organization. And the way we're set up, it just provides a different experience for clients. So
How do you think, both of you can answer it or choose either way, you're different from your competition?
I would say that's one of the primary. So I like to say we're corporate educated and college educated builders, which in and of itself is unique and different. B, we've got this partnership where he runs the field, I run the office, and we don't, cross over too often. And only when we talk to each other would we cross over. So I don't speak towards Dan's schedules. He's pretty careful not to speak towards my numbers, right? And if he does, he'll qualify it with, hey, we got to talk to Bob first. But, I'll say, I'm pretty sure we should be done next week. I don't know, but we need to talk to Dan first.
So there's a lot of trust here.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if I'm a consumer, I'm sitting here listening going, why wouldn't I do this? if I'm in the market, if this is something I want to do, to me that sounds like an incredibly enjoyable opportunity to work with you guys, because there's communication, there's trust, there's execution, and there's a quality product. I mean, that's what more could you want, right? I mean, I don't know. I couldn't think of it any better.
Right.
And I know you, Bob. We've met a few times. We do shows.
Right.
Dan, first time I've met you, and I'm just saying, wow. I mean, if I were in the market, you'd be busy. You'd be working for me.
Right.
I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah.
You'd be doing a project for me. It
we'd
came
be
out the
working
wrong
for
way.
you. That's fine.
No,
We get
no,
it.
no,
Yeah.
no. I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah.
But no, you'd be doing a project with me.
Right.
It would be awesome.
Well,
So all I can say is that, as you listen to this is real. I think that's the most important part of it.
Yeah. And it's a very transparent exercise, at least in your upper middle market to luxury space. You've got cost plus programs. So we have a 12% general contractor fee or GC fee, and then we've got anywhere from 3 to 5% overheads. So all in, we're at 15 to 16%. Everything else after that is the cost, right? And so everybody sees every invoice, everybody sees every quote and proposal. So the more information we have, the better we can build the budget up front. You get to see the excavation contractor's quote and what the assumptions were on that, all the way from excavation through soils to shingles, like you said. So,
That doesn't happen a lot, does it?
well, I mean,
I wouldn't think.
I think some people say they're cost plus, but they really aren't as transparent as.
But
as
you're
you should be.
you're proving it.
Yeah.
You're saying we are, and here's why. Here it is.
Right.
And that's peace of mind for sure.
Right.
So how does a project go from, beginning to middle to completion? What does that look like, and when is it done officially?
Takes a few months.
Right.
Right.
So, it's we traditionally have done weekly conference calls with buyers through the process, and it's hard to gauge what that cycle time is. It depends on the project. There's also different levels of communication that we have with homeowners. Some people are really active, some people are very passive, just in terms of how they engage in the process. Overall, there's key elements or key dates where we want to have, just for peace of mind, the customer to be able to be on site and experience certain things and weigh in, because there are points of no return or very expensive modifications. So to have those opportunities through the process and be engaging and include trade partners in site visits so that you can do the electrical layout, you can have them view what's going to be covered up when you get to drywall, and have that opportunity to just kind of draw a line in the sand and say, okay, this is where we are. This is the milestone for us to move it forward from here.
Here we go.
Right.
Or here we don't go.
Yeah.
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 Wow. And so then when you have a satisfied customer, maybe partner, depending upon what you call them, that's done or completed, do you continue communication, or how does that work?
So we have a 30-day follow-up with customers, and then we
Great.
do an 11-month, and that's based on, there's certain aspects of the home that are under warranty for only 1 year, and
Sure.
we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to lean on the trades that are needed to replace a door because it's warped, or it's that fit and finish warranty is a 1-year period. And then mechanical systems is 2, structural is 10. So we typically at 1 year take care of anything that has come up to that point. And then from there, mechanical systems are warranted typically by the mechanical contractor directly. And if things comes up, we deal with customers. I got a message from somebody that's in a 10-year-old house. So you don't stop.
Okay,
But
that's kind of what I was wondering. Yeah,
Right.
very, very fair.
I thought you were speaking towards marketing. How do we follow up with our clients?
Well,
Not-
kind of
not
both,
service,
actually.
but yeah.
So overviewed both. So because they could lead to new business,
Right.
So you're speaking to them in a 10-year-old house. It's 10, but they may have a friend or children that are now getting of that age where that's maybe an opportunity for them to say, "Nah, these guys still show up."
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So super cool.
That's where we want to be, right? If 8 years down the road your door is rubbing for some reason or another, give us a call, let us know. We'll come out and take a look at it and try to help you troubleshoot it. And if it's, we'll cover it if we can, or help you get in touch with the manufacturer if need be.
So final question here. How do you find, we kind of talked about this in the first, if I remember correctly. How do you find your property where you want to be?
Well, a lot of times it finds us, right?
Right.
It's Mr. and Mrs. Bethesda with their plans, and they've got a lot,
Got it.
or they've they've got a house in South Minneapolis, and they're going to do a 1,500-foot addition and tear off their garage and whatever. So they'll source us out, and we end up going to them,
Great.
and more often than not.
So it doesn't have to be just somewhere towards Stillwater where there's something going on. It could be a home in South Minneapolis where you're doing that type of thing.
Correct.
Or wherever.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. And how many projects do you think you guys can take? You don't have to give a number, but is it heavy volume, or do you tend to say, we want to be a little more contained and controlled? What's your strategy there?
Right now, it's more contained, and part of that is the homes that we're building currently have the level of detail, fit, and finish is pretty intense. And so just from a capacity standpoint, there's capacity, but it's limited. We certainly wouldn't want to dig 3 homes in a period of a month.
Right.
It may be 3 1/4 is comfortable based on the type of home that we're currently building. So there's definitely a strategy to trying to not stack things up based on who we are and the roles that we play.
So it's self-awareness. People can get in trouble when they bite off more than they can chew. Sometimes as entrepreneurs, we want to get it all, right? And then sometimes when you try to grab the whole bunch, a lot fall out of your arms because you can't hold it all,
Right.
right?
And that can be a negative reflection.
Correct.
Or provide a negative experience to a potential client.
And that's not who these guys are.
Right.
So,
Right.
closing thoughts, Bob, anything?
No, I just appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and walk us through these conversations.
I love it. It's fun.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Dan. It's great. I've got a couple topic ideas, but we'll do that off the air a little bit later. I'm looking forward. These are just things that are like percolating in my mind as we're moving along, saying, I want to know more about that, or I want to know more about that.
Yeah.
And what I like about this format of what we're doing here, it's almost like as if we were sitting around having a beer and I want to learn more about what you do. You have those conversations a million times. And to me, it's fascinating because everybody has something. Everybody has a story, and everybody does something that none of us in this room do. And that's what's super cool about it. Yeah. So that's what I like. Guys, this has been the Construction Chronicles. We've had a blast here on the podcast. We'll be back with another one coming up. For Bob Appert and Dan Larson, I'm Pete Wagner. So long, everybody. This has been the Construction Chronicles podcast with Bob and Dan. It's been a great show. You can check them out at redstonebuilders.net.